Hello, my friends, and welcome to MSP Unplugged. I'm your host, Rick Smith. This is the place to learn tips, tricks, and strategies to help you run and grow your IT service business. Whether you're a one-person shop or leading a team for the journey, this is the place for you. Let me introduce you to my co-host for today, Mr. Corey Kirkendall from 5K Technical Services out in Dallas. How are you today, my friend?
What's going on, Rick? Doing well, man. Just trying to stay afloat, man. Might have to get that boat out because it's raining like crazy out here.
Hear ya. We've had some nice weather in New Jersey. It's good to be able to say that. It's not been particularly hot, but it hasn't been particularly cold either, which is really good. So no complaints over here. Over here. I'm Paco is out for the day. Our other co-host Paco LeBron. He is doing some work. He's been traveling, visiting him and Corey are the kings of seeing all of the of visiting a lot of the shows that go on. So as everybody knows, I'm a little more of a homebody, but I will be getting out more. But Paco's been on the road, so he will be joining us next week. Before we get started on today's topic, Corey, we're going to start you off with a tip, trick, or story you got for the people for the week.
Yeah, for sure. Last night we had the honor and the privilege of hanging out with one of our customers. They were celebrating 25 years of being in business. Very prominent attorney here in Dallas, and it was cool. Rick, you would appreciate this, man. It was actually at the Star. So we had the
Ah,
Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders in there, had Rowdy out there with me, man. Yes, yes. And it was cool. Uh, what was really cool was to be able to get that invite and to do it really shows that we're part of the family and really part of her growth and where she's growing. And for us to include and kind of be out there, man, we had judges, lawyers, attorneys, family members. It was all there, and then we're there. So it really solidifies, man, of we're doing something right to be on the right side of being a partner and part of the family. When I want to say that, to be able to be invited in to celebrate that with her and see that growth, it was cool to see her looking through the crowd and see us and be supportive of us coming out there and talking to our family members about where she been, where she's done, and how they come. So they constantly kept coming up to us and saying, "Hey, thank you for supporting Heather in her journey and doing things," and she really appreciates that. So we know that it doesn't fall upon deaf ears, and she's very excited and values the relationship. So what I would say is that make sure that you strive for that kind of relationship with your customers to be able to be invited and know that you are thought about on those celebrations, that you're at them and not hearing about them or reading about them on social media. So that's my tip, trick, and thing that happened, man. It was really cool to hang out and be with the family last night.
that's cool, man. It's always good to do it. I mean, it's a good touch. It's very good for business to be out, doing that, but also on a personal note, getting to know your customers and knowing people on a personal note is goes a long way. And again, being out with family, like you say, is just awesome.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
have a interesting little tidbit today. I service some customers in New York City. So I was and rather than drive from New Jersey, I take the train in, New Jersey train. It's about a 30-minute ride from where I'm at. So I'm on the train. I had my headphones on, but I didn't have anything playing. So behind me was a young lady and a older gentleman who was sitting behind me. I thought they were together, but apparently I eavesdropped on the conversation and realized they were not together. Um, traveling together. So the older gentleman starts a conversation with the young lady, and he asked her, "What do you do?" And she said, "Well, I just started a new company. I do X, Y, and Z, blah, blah, blah." And he said, "Well, I've been in marketing for 33 years, and I'm just going to give you a piece of advice. When you're anywhere and someone asks you what you do, you need to have that quote unquote 30-second elevator pitch." And he said, "You just need to be clear and concise about what you do." But he said, the spin on it is to make it personal to the person you're talking to, right? Speak to them as if whatever you do, no matter what it is somehow going to benefit them. And he was just saying, "I'm just going to give you that piece of advice." He said, "More business is won because someone can be short, clear, and concise about what they do, and they personalize that to the person they're talking to than any 20 page sales process you go through." So, and I just thought about that. As they were, and they continued the conversation, but that stuck with me. And I asked myself, hey, if someone asked me, what do you do? And I've been doing this for 20 plus years, right? But we do have this long soliloquy of what we do because we think about it as it's, we want to bring it down in the layman's terms, but it's a lot of different things we do. But so I thought about that. So I've been working on that now to really be able to, in 30 seconds or less, tell somebody exactly what I do and how it could benefit them. So my tip, I guess, for the week is practice that 30-second elevator pitch, and know it cold, know how to, and be able to relate it to whoever you're talking to. And I think that may actually go a long way. It's crazy that I've known that my whole life and just never really practiced it.
Now that's what's up. Hey, when someone asks me that, I just kind of go blank, like what? And then
Yeah,
then it kind of kicks off, right? That's good stuff.
I'm an MSP. But what the hell
What's
is
that?
that?
No doubt.
But today's topic, we're going to talk about improving client onboarding process, right? So we all bring in the goal in all of this is to grow your business, make as much money as you can while servicing your clients effectively. But to continue growth in your business, you have to be bringing on new prospects, right? Bringing on new clients. And we've spoken before about how it's okay, how we focus on getting the clients and expanding our customer base. But if you really can't bring them on effectively, do an effective job, you're going to lose those customers just as fast as you brought them in. So I'm going to let Corey kick this off about how he does it and how we can improve our onboarding process.
No doubt. Man, this is a key because this affects the whole flow and operations of everything that you do. So we go through a real proper onboard, and we have a really quick sheet that we go through to talk about obviously passwords, who it is, what you got going on from that perspective. We take it a little bit personal from that perspective. We actually ask them up front, can we have your cell number, email address, all the passwords, all your bills from your AT&T slash cable slash QuickBooks slash whatever that is. And we try to get as much information as we did. But what's unique is we actually send the tech or the project manager is going to be working with you over to kind of hand walk you through that process because it's a lot of information. So it's not overwhelming. Part of that is it gives them opportunity to know and ask questions that they just don't know versus just send them out a sheet of paper and say, hey, fill this out and send it back to me. Because we all know that it probably comes back 25% filled out and we don't ever
Right.
go back and get that information. The other thing is that we take a tripod with a gimbal and their phone and we actually walk through the office and get a visual presentation of what's happening at the office. Here's how we come to the front door, what the whole office looks like, where the computer equipment looks like, where all the desks looks like, all that good stuff. So that no matter if we do a lot of stuff remote, that I can look back at the video and actually tell exactly who's in what office, who's who, and where's the computer room, what's it looks like, those things from that perspective, and get a lay of the land as if I've been there before and kind of walk through it. Just one more personal piece that we're able to see and do that. And we try to update that once a quarter and say, because things change, people move, and we have those conversations. And what's awesome is we stand outside the door and say, hey, this is Mary Johnson. We look in, look at it. Here's our setup. Come back out. Hey, this is Dennis Jackson. Here's what his left up look like. Here's what it looks like. And if they're there, hey, Dennis, wave at us. And they kind of do that piece, right? So it also builds that piece of saying, hey, we get a chance to know who we're talking to, put a face with the name versus just getting a spreadsheet with just names and addresses and things and that we just don't know what that looks like. And we really thoroughly document it down to a point, and we put it in a book. And what's great about that is once we finish that documentation and we get it all we use IT Glue, we actually print out a run book, document it, put it in the binder, and hand it back to our single point of contact. And it goes a long way because one, shows we're not holding their information hostage. Plus two, they never knew they even had that documentation in that situation. But it also serves as a thing for us that they have a copy, we have a copy, tell them to lock it up, make sure it's where it needs to get done. But if something ever happened to IT Glue or something happens to our copy, we know we get another one on the customer and it's theirs. It's their data, it's their information. It just goes a long way to show that trust and building that relationship back and forth, which is extremely, extremely important.
I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
I love the fact that you do the video, actually, the walkthrough video. I hadn't thought about that. we approach it in a three-step process, right? There's the three works. There's the paperwork, then there's the technical work, and then there's the
Hmm.
people work. And
Right.
the way we look at that is we get all the the documents, that all the things we need, the passwords, the access, all of those things that go out. There's forms that go back and forth, and like you say, those usually come back half filled out, because sometimes it helps too, because the client sometimes doesn't know what it means, or where that particular piece of information is. So it informs us on what we need to do a little bit more to, either education on or research on, to find the information we need.
Hmm.
So the paperwork helps us in that sense, right? Then there's the technical work. There's the physical onboarding, the whatever we need to add to the systems, bringing the systems in, all those things. That's all the computer work, the technical work. And then there's the people work. And now what we do is a little different, and I love your idea, and I think I'm probably going to steal it, because we do a sketch of the office, a rough hand sketch of the office, of everywhere that there's a desk and there's a computer. We name them, so that in our convention, when a ticket comes in, we know where the ticket, who sits where. So we'll basically create the desk, put the person's name there, and then where the server room is, or if there's a server room, wherever the main equipment is, we'll do pictures of that to show all the equipment there. And then what we'll do is we'll put that on in our RMM, and there's also in Hoodoo, which is our documentation. And what that will do is, when a ticket comes in, we can visualize where they are. If they're telling us there's a problem with the printer, we can visualize where the printer is, things like that, so we know exactly where it is. One of the things we want to do on the other side of this, and I've been thinking through this, and then your idea about the video really helps me do this too, is I want to do videos of the technicians as well, right? So that um my technicians are out of state. They're not local. So they're not going to see them in office. So I'd like to do a video of each technician introducing themselves, and that goes to the client. So then
Hmm.
that way, at least you have when you're talking to a technician to get something done, you have kind of a familiarity of what they look like, right? It kind of helps you with the visual, to talk, to say, hey, I know what that guy looks like. I know what that guy looks like. Oh, what that guy looks like. So maybe we'll think about incorporating a quick intro video from each technician, saying, hey, I'm such and such, I'm technician this, you'll be talking to me, whatever. But that came to mind. I've been thinking about that, and now your idea with the video of the action on the other side has reinforced the thought to do it on both sides of it.
Nah, that's what's up, man. And what's cool is you build that out, and we try to do is we onboard, and they say they got 20 employees. Who are we onboard with the 20 employees? Man, in 6 months or a year, it's probably more employees, or the same 20 are not there, right? And
Mhm.
we never go back and onboard. And so one of the things we try to do in that video piece is what you're saying is really cool, because now we try to create a moment of onboarding each customer. Now it's done via video. Hey, thank you, welcome. This is who we are from a 5K perspective. We also have a one sheeter. We talk about how are all the ways that you can contact us, who we are, what the SLAs are. Here's our contact numbers, and here's how you get up with us. And that's for everybody to have. It knows, hey, I can click on the icon on the desktop. I can email help desk at 5K. I can call 5K. I can do it through Teams. We can get it in all the places of where you can actually contact us and be able to get on board with us and do it. The other thing that we do that's pretty unique here is that whether it's virtual or in person, when we onboard them, we actually do a video, or they're on site with us, so they get a chance to meet the technicians that's going to come out on site. And I'm speaking to all the things of where it comes from. And what we really do is spend the time is emphasizing, don't live with the problem. Don't just click it and keep it going. Don't just say I'm intending to call IT. I'm intending to call IT, because ultimately what happens, your boss walk in and say, hey, can I get that report? And you hit print and it doesn't print. He's like, well, I meant, but Renactus never got back to me, right?
Uh-huh.
But it wasn't fact.
Uh-huh.
They didn't never going to say I didn't open a case. It just says I
Right.
didn't do that. And so we try to tell them to not sit on it. And we really emphasize to them that we want everybody to open up a case, because we're taking trends, we're looking at situations, and it helps us as well. Where if Rick opens up a case on email, then we're troubleshooting Rick. But if Rick and Sally and James and Lisa open up a case on email at the same time, then we know we got a bigger problem to look
Right.
at. So we're not pigeonholed down that situation. And we just want to be able to show those trends, to be able to do those things. So we really emphasize the fact of opening up cases. And then the first thing we do that's also cool is we do a full-blown cleanup of all the cables that are hanging around, the closet that's going on, because we believe that when I walk into an IT company and I walk into the closet or look under the desk or do whatever it is, that's a direct representation of who's supporting them,
Mm-hmm.
right? And because what we do is not tangible, those little things that are visual to be able to show the value that while we're there brings that little bit of tangibility back to us and say, now I know why I'm using this MSP or who is it doing, because my IT closet looks good, because my cable's under there. When I kick it, I'm not kicking it out under there, right? I'm not doing those things. And it was just one more level of personality and personal touch that we give to them. And it goes a long way in that onboarding. So it's a complete process. And then we also bring them lunch on that day as well. We sit down with them, we have lunch and break bread with them and say, hey, this is who we are. This is how you use us. This is how we're doing it. And we work it back from that perspective. Goes a long, long way.
Yeah, it makes sense. It definitely does. And then, again, everybody always remember you only get one chance to make a first impression, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you start this process off, you want it to go as smoothly as possible. There's always going to be some kind of hiccup, right?
Yep.
Something you may not have anticipated, or something, maybe times it's things you do anticipate and this is going to happen and you're prepared to deal with it. But I would say this: more important than what goes a little awry is how you handle it, right? How that
Mm-hmm.
customer sees you address it, particularly in the early goings of it, right? Once you and I don't mean this to say you can get lax as the longer you have a client, but the longer you have them, the more they trust you, the less chance you have of something going a little haywire that would lead them to question working with you. But in the beginning, those things really matter. And I it doesn't matter what the problem is. I think we more so want to emphasize how you handle it. Um, Now, one of the things I wanted to, shift it. We talk about how we do it, and I want to shift a little to, as you've gone through the process. I know you've been in business for a while. What has and how have you made adjustments to make the process better for you?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Really listening to the customer, right? And getting feedback. We really have an open door policy when it comes to our customers, and it says, hey, if you want to talk to me or my operation manager or anybody, you can just give us a call, and we kind of walk through that process. And the way we do it is we don't have a one size fits all. We kind of live by that 80-20 rule, right? 80% matches everybody else, but there's always that 20% of customization that kind of goes in that perspective of how they want to open up cases, and what they want to get done. Now what we're looking at is bringing in a lot more automation, right? Looking at how we onboard PCs better, how we bring in the customer better, how we better document, how much information do they want to have access? Do they want to have access to the portal to look at their cases? Do they not want to have how much information they want? How do they handle procurement of PCs? All those things. Some of those things are very customized to the individual customer that eventually becomes our process, because that's a value we add to others as well as we go down that path. And one of the things we also sit down with them is we're very transparent and says, look, you know, when you come in there, we want to emphasize on opening the case the right way and where it comes from, because there's a sense that, hey, if I'm paying you to be your MSP, that I'm your only customer, and when I call, I want service right away.
Right.
You got to have that conversation as, hey, we are going to do that, but there's going to be times where I got a priority one over here and I'm working on somebody else, and we may get to you a little bit later. And then there's a time when you're going to be priority one and we're going to take care of you, and then they may have to get a bit later. There's that ebb and flow of really understanding and being transparent that those situations happen. We had a situation just last week when we were working through it, and one of the engineers called. We had a customer that was transitioning the single point of contact. One was retiring and one was coming in. We had just met with the new one, and and we were just establishing ourselves, because it's like starting all over again, right? Because they want to come in and do their own thing. Well, it just so happened that person gets a case and has the worst customer service experience ever. He was a little
Mm.
hot. But what was great about that is that one, we were told what it was, we acknowledged, we acted on it, and we followed up with them and apologized and said, "This is what we did to take care of it, and this is what we want to make sure we do to go forward." This is the exact words that customer said. First of all, thank you. I did not expect you to call me back. I didn't expect you to address it. I didn't expect you to say anything. And I value customer service, and you knocked it out of the park. Even though I didn't get the support that I was expecting, you came back and recovered to the point where you made it all good for us. And in most cases, we won't follow up because it's like, man, I don't want to hear that. I'm gonna let it
Mhm.
go and let it die out. But the key in that situation is good, bad, or ugly. I used to be a programmer, do the Harry Carry, fall on the sword, be transparent, acknowledge that, yep, we screwed up. But this is what we're gonna do to make it right. Here's what we're gonna do to do something different. That goes a long, long way.
Yeah, I think that's great. And then again, it goes back to what I said earlier. You know, it's how you handle the problem that's more important than anything else, right? So the fact that you were brave enough, smart enough to follow up and say, "Hey, we made a mistake or we screwed it up this way. Here's how we're fixing it." And
Mhm.
so that you don't run into this again. Clients appreciate that, because they don't. It's something that doesn't happen a lot, right?
Yep.
You will find most of the time, folks will find a way to make a mistake they made somehow a mistake you made, or you know what I mean, or just because
That
they don't
Jedi
want to
mind trick.
admit that.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly that ghetto Jedi mind trick, ghetto mind trick. But yeah, and so it goes a long way when you can say, "Hey, we screwed up. I made a mistake.
Hmm.
I'm sorry. Here's what we're doing to fix it, and this won't happen again." Right? And now the important part is don't let it happen again. But the
Yep.
thing is own up to it because people respect that more and they don't get it a lot in business, right? They
No,
don't get it a
they
lot.
don't.
So that makes you unique. It
It
makes you
does.
stand out.
Mhm.
And the problem goes from this big to this big because of how you dealt with it.
Yep.
And I think about as we've been onboarding customers, we learn every time we were running into glitches. And this is the part about learning from your mistakes, right? As we were onboarding, we'd run into glitches. Somehow we'd be missing some information, right? And it would
Mhm.
be, hey, we didn't anticipate, or on our checklist, we didn't ask for this, we didn't ask for this, or we didn't ask for that. Um, Here's a classic example. For some reason, we did not document um the firewall, the actual modem. So if a client uses Verizon or when they get a modem from them, we didn't document sometimes access into that modem, right? So if I'm not telling any secrets here. If you use Comcast in New Jersey, the default is cuss admin is the username and high speed is the password. If that's the default that Comcast sets up. Now, if the customer or the user has changed that and we didn't document it or we don't know to ask for it, we didn't think to ask for it because we're thinking 90% of them never change it. When we run into an issue, then we got to track it down. And we ran into this 2 or 3 times before somebody had the bright idea, hey, we should actually put that on the sheet and then we should actually test to see if it's the default or whatever it is. And if nothing else, maybe we hard reset it so that it goes back to something we can set, right? If the customer doesn't know it. And that's just an example of just really you have to learn from your mistakes. And I have been guilty of this a lot is when documentation really became important to us when I realized how much time we spend researching the same things over and over again. It's because we didn't document it, right? So we don't have a place to go to get it. So we go back to Google again, search the problem. Google gives us one answer. We have to narrow it down, things like that. When in fact we could have just documented the problem. So it goes back to, what you talked about earlier. Documentation is key for all of this. It needs to be there. So a lot of the refining we've done has been in making sure we're getting the right relevant information and that it helps us to be prepared when situations arise. That one thing you never think will come up comes up, right? And then you got to
Yep.
figure out a way to
Yep.
deal with it if you didn't anticipate it. So um I would say the best thing that you can do, if I'm giving advice, is each time you do an onboarding, if there's something different, make sure you add it now to your process. Because if one client has it, somewhere down the line, another client's
Hmm.
going to have it too. Somewhere along the line, you're going to run into that issue again. And one of the other things we try to make sure we do is, I have a lot of clients who are in the optometry profession, and they use this product called Office Mate by Affinity. So one of the things I get them to do is reach out to them to give me permission to speak to them, because usually they'll call, there'll be an issue, and they have to know who you are, where you're calling from. If you're not on this list, they don't talk to you. So basically, those are things that you should think about too, because when customers call you for issues and you have to reach out to third parties for help, right, to help them solve an issue. So if you have to reach out to technical support on behalf of another um, or line of business software they use, you need to be someone that they're allowed to speak to, right? And we take
Yeah.
that for granted as well. So this is something else I just think we should always keep in mind.
I love
But,
it, man. We do that similar thing. We ask no matter what for a letter of authorization for all of our clients, right? We give them that and they sign it. So they give us permission that we can forward to them. But you're right. Doing that is always big. One of the things that we try to do, but we don't do a great job of it because we get busy and keep running, is I always say for every project and or onboarding to do a postmortem with the team. What went well? What didn't go well? What do we need to improve? What do we need to get done? Right? Because it's a constant process improvement. And when we don't do that, we continue to make the same mistakes, right? We're automating the mistake. And so
mhm.
it's good that we kind of take a step back, sit back, and one, celebrate the successes of what went well, celebrate the understanding of what didn't go well, and then learning and growing together so that the next person doesn't have to endure. We keep making the same mistakes, right, of what's going down that path, and the process just gets better and better and better. Is what we got to get done, and we're, like I said, we move so fast that that's always the process part that we just forget to do. But when we do it, it's extremely beneficial. So that's one of the things for 25 that we're trying to work through, is saying, hey, make sure that post mortem happens of what went well, what didn't go well, what we should not do ever again, and making sure that everything was properly documented and things from that perspective is keenly key to exactly hit you back on making sure that we cover those gaps and mistakes and get better each and every time. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think one of the things when you talk about going over what you do, right? Going over your process, having that debrief. How about having it with the customer as well, right? Hey, maybe
Yeah.
a quick survey or
Hmm.
something. How was your onboarding? Your onboarding is complete. You know, how was it? Like you get, and it's better to get two perspectives. You get a perspective from the point of contact or the owner or whoever is in charge, right? Because their
Yeah.
experience may be different than the other users who used it, who have to go through this, right? Um,
Yeah.
so I would think maybe two perspectives on this is, one from the owner and then one from one of the users, if not all of the users, just to get a feel on how they feel the process went. Because there
Yeah.
can be some valuable information in there and what their experience was that could help you make this smoother going forward. Now, this is something we don't do, but it's something that I really want to implement because I, feedback is key, but feedback is important. Acting on the feedback is more important. So,
No doubt. I'll tell you the speech that we do when it's in training. There's two parts to it. So first thing we tell a customer is, it says, look, it's going to be a little bit rough over the next couple of weeks, right? We're going to come in and rip the Band-Aid off. There's going to be some things that you've lived with that that's been a workaround. We're going to come in and fix it, and we're going to break it. And you're going to say, man, we made the biggest mistake we've ever made. And I was like, man, why did we hire these guys? They're breaking all our stuff. I'm so used to having to click on the icon on my desktop because the last MSP didn't know how to map the drive, whatever that was. And we come in and take the icon away and map the drive the right way, and we broke it. We've changed the way they've done stuff and fixed stuff that they've been living with,
mhm.
and being straight up with them. Hey, just be patient. It's going to be good. And you're going to see us on site. You're going to see us around. We're going to be very hands-on. And eventually it's going to wean off and we're not there. And that's cool. And then the next piece we ask is what most people are afraid to ask is that we get a list of all the problems and things that they've been just complaining about for however long. Hey, tell me what's been happening. Hey, I could never print. I could never scan from this thing, right? Scanners never worked. Or, hey, I got dual monitors and all, and they never worked, right? My docking station, music comes out of it, but I don't have anything attached to it. Whatever that is, we get all the list of things. And then what that allows us to do is in that onboarding or through that process, we know that once we onboard them correctly and bring it up to we have what we call a 5K standard. We bring them up to a point where everybody's on the same patch, same whatever, everything's touched. Once we get them to that baseline, we're good. And we know that when we do that the right way, we solve most of those issues that they're going to be complaining about. And so what
Mhm.
we do is we take that list, and then now I can go back to them and say, hey, here's what you said you needed to have worked on when we onboarded you, and now that we're supporting you, we've checked all those boxes for you and show immediate, you know, forward progress that they've been living with forever. And it just makes it, hey man, we made the right decision. First of all, you cared about what our pain points were. You've solved our pain points, and you've already improved us better than we were living with before. And we believe we made the right choice. So that's a big deal.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I will, we can begin to wrap up here, but I will say this too. I think it's important is pay attention. It goes back to what you said about, hey, tell me your pain points, tell me what goes wrong. But if you can observe how your customers use the systems, right? Observe what they do.
Mhm.
Sometimes you have a problem, they have a problem and they don't know it's a problem, or they've had a problem for so long, they figured out their own way to work around it, which takes them more time, but they do it that way because they know it works, right? As opposed to,
Mhm.
um, again, it could be something as simple as I have to go through the start menu, through to programs, to this, to get to the icon that opens up this program, because for some reason it's no longer in the taskbar. It's no longer on the desktop, or not in apps or whatever, or I didn't see it in apps. So I have to go through these 25 steps to open up this program when you can just put a shortcut on the desktop or on the taskbar. Things like that. We try to do things like that all the time. We'll find out what their browser is, the browser that they prefer to use. We'll put a shortcut on the taskbar, shortcut to email,
Mhm.
shortcut to we use Keeper. So we'll put a shortcut to Keeper, things like that. We'll put on the taskbar just to make it easy, less clicks for them, a little less work for them, to go searching for certain things. But it's important to watch how they do things, or ask, what do you use the most? And if you see what they use the most, make it easy for them. Put it on the taskbar, put it on the desktop, whatever, however they work. Some people don't like the taskbar. Some people like to work out of the desktop.
Yeah.
Um, we have one particular client who, no matter what, just prefers to have every single thing on the desktop. So now the desktop is full with icons of it, but that is the way she works. So we work around it. You know what I mean? But we try to basically I've given up on telling her to save it somewhere else. So we just use she's a Office 365 user, so it's backed up anyway. But it's how she works. She doesn't want to click to the document. She doesn't want to click this. So
Yeah.
what I tried to do initially was just put a shortcut to the documents folder on the desktop and say, hey, click this, it'll get you. That didn't work either. But anyway, but it's just, it's some things, and I guess I'll leave with this. Some things you want to make easier for the customer just because it makes sense, right? Some things you have to put your foot down. You have to say it diplomatically, but get them to understand that it has to be done this way. And that main contention always comes back to, the best example I can use is MFA, right? It's
Yep.
always an issue with MFA because people don't want to take that extra step to go get a code or whatever they may do. But you have to, emphasize the importance of things like that. But usually what happens is you get a smooth transition. Um, and if you can solve some of those other pain points, maybe this adding this one additional pain point,
Yeah.
will not be that bad. They'll embrace it a little bit more.
Nah, that's golden, man. And to add on to that, man, it's not about you; it's about them, right? And that's the whole piece. Is we try to go in there and make it do what we feel and what we like, Make it understand and do it the way they want to do it and how they do it, because they got that muscle memory. And if you don't do it that way, you're pushing against what their bodies and what their mind is used to, and it's
Hmm.
just confrontational from that perspective. And again, there's some things like MFA and other things that you're just not going to compromise on. But there's things like, hey, do I really want to fight against the lady with all the things on the desktop? No, I'm gonna back it up. That's the way she works. Now I know that's how she works. I'll drop a note in my PSA. Do not change Lisa's desktop
Right.
for anything, right? Keep it that way and keep it moving. But that's the key piece, is that you understand and move with that. It's about your customers, not about you. Because they're going to be your advocates, right? If it's hard for them to do work and hard for them to do business, you're counterproductive, and then you're just hurting your cause. And that's the piece where you don't want to be. Listen to them, follow them, and understand it's not about you; it's about them, and you'll be good for sure.
Yeah. I think that's the perfect place to wrap up here. So we'll call it we'll call it a episode here. It's a little quick here. No Paco, so it's only two of us talking, so we can bring it down a little bit here. But any final words you got for us, Corey, before we sign off?
Nah, man, it's always good, man. Keep, what we do is hard, right? And remember that, but it don't have to be that hard. We're here to support, there to do it. And remember your customer, man. We're in a relationship business, so we just happen to do IT. Keep that forefront for sure.
I think that's an awesome way to end it here. So we'll leave it at that. We invite you to join us each week. Catch the video podcast on youtube.com/MSP Unplugged. Corey and I are here. Paco's not here, so there's no faces for radio this week. So you should watch us on video. But if you can't catch us there, we're
Love
on
it.
your favorite podcatcher apps. That's Apple Music, Amazon, Spotify, just to name a few. For Corey and I want to thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time on MSP Unplugged.